One of the people that we've more recently started keeping up with more is a man by the name of Donald Trump Jr. And he has started to put himself more out front in his father's campaign. One of the ways is this podcast that he has triggered with Donald Trump Jr. And I have a few moments from the latest episode. Insane stuff. And I want you to take note of just how many dishonest points, at the beginning, paranoid thoughts, and just all around irrationality can be crammed into the few clips that I have for you. Stunning. Really an accomplishment if you think about it. And before playing the first one of the things I was thinking about, and actually colleague Jack brought this up to me in preparation for this segment, it is interesting to think about. I was trying to understand, why is Donald Trump Jr. unraveling so much? Why are things so crazy that are spitting out of his mouth constantly? And we've gotten reporting, by the way, from his ex-girlfriend, for example, that this is not him. When she knew him back before all the political stuff, he wasn't like this. And it is sort of a character that he's playing. But why is he getting so unhinged? And if you think about his life, you have this sort of cushy life, and then father gets into politics, and now he's forced in this position. He chooses to force himself, but so it's on him. But where he's out front having to defend some of the most vile political people like his dad, and actions like what we see from this movement. And that's going to deteriorate any person, right? That's why you shouldn't do that. And you should choose to, even in the case of your own father, not go along with this because of what he stands for. And then at this particular juncture, Donald Trump Jr. is looking down the path and seeing there is a very narrow option, or well, how do I explain this? There's three ways this could go. There's a few ways this could go. And one of the paths that maybe he'll go down is his dad wins and he has this authoritarian future and Donald Trump Jr. feels fine. But most of the paths lead to a terrifying future for Donald Trump Jr. And so as those walls close in, as polling starts to look better for Joe Biden, as his inheritance diminishes because of Trump's pouring of money into both his campaign and his legal expenses, as the reputation of Donald Trump Jr. just collapses, he really is experiencing the crumbling of his own life that goes along with being supportive of his father. And that's why his sister, Ivanka, decided, I'm not doing this again, okay? I'm not going to associate so much with my dad in this campaign. So as all that's happening, we watch this podcast. That's the context, right? That's why maybe he's getting in the habit of saying insane things like this.
5% of the time, but as long as you fold when it actually matters, you have that easy existence. But I will say, when we look at what's going on right now, you joke about being carted off to the gulags. Like, I don't actually think it's a joke. I legitimately think that's on the table. I can see that based on what they've tried to do to me over the last 8 years, what they're trying to do to my father, what they did to, J6ers and even incredibly, peaceful people taking selfies inside the velvet ropes. And, it's a disparate treatment. Every election cycle, everyone's always said, well, this one's the most important ever. I mean, this time it actually really feels like it.
Just the quickest of pauses of your viewing of this video to request, if you're not already, to become subscribed to the channel by clicking that subscribe button. It's free, it's easy, but we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
It used to be a cliche.
Yeah, one of the most important that we've had because of your dad and the threat he poses. But he says it's not even out of the question that they, I guess the Democrats, are going to haul him off to the gulags. Which is crazy town. And also is a pattern. I'll show you a few more examples here in a second. But another thing that Jack and, like I said, preparation, our conversation before this, was mentioning is think about a post-Trump defeat. All of Donald Trump Jr.'s relevance goes away. There was reporting about how the Trump children, I think it was Ivanka and Jared, were experiencing dismay, if you can imagine. Not being invited anymore to any social gatherings in New York and being pariah because of their participation in the Trump administration. And so Donald Trump Jr. is saying, unless the scenario plays out where my dad wins here, he might be going off to prison, his reputation obliterated, my relevance gone, his business increasingly getting crushed. What will I have? That's the desperation that causes him to also say stuff like this. And yes, this is a clip from my show. It's the quickest way I could find this clip. I remembered.
Saint Fan 20, Don Jr. for execution. Are we doing that, guys? I know the Democrats probably would actually. So that perhaps we shouldn't rule it out, but I can't say that publicly because I'll get a. But yeah, I have a feeling if
you just said it publicly, I think I said that in this video, so maybe we won't play any further. That'd be weird. But no, you're not going to be executed. And I just have to keep making this point. It's such a self-important point to make. Tucker Carlson also said this, and Don Jr. agreed with it.
I think a lot of people yesterday when that verdict came down, I'm among them, my first reaction was, wow, they'll actually hurt us. Like they would execute us, me, I'll just say, speak for myself, and there would be an MSNBC panel of former federal prosecutors telling their audience that I deserved it, and they'd be like...
Don Jr. going, yeah, Listen, God, how do I say this? With all respect in the world, okay? And I mean this authentically. To Donald Trump Jr.'s Triggered podcast, I don't know if that's the first outlet they're going to try to take down this authoritarian regime that exists in Donald Trump Jr.'s mind that he's projecting onto Democrats for some reason. And no, I don't think they understand how these sorts of authoritarian regimes actually operated and operate. The way Trump has been treated is not the way that you'd be treated, okay? He's had all of the preferential treatment through our legal process. He's had his due process. He's going to get his appeals. He's going to have all sorts of people with different ideologies reviewing this. And he's not being treated like he'd be if the Biden regime, as they describe it, were treating him the way they pretend like it is. So it's just completely fictionalized. He got himself in legal trouble. And praise the Lord, it seems that our country does, at least in this situation, abide by a principle that no one's above the law. We're learning that. Good. Someone with his status, evidence was brought forward, proved he broke the law, and he's being held accountable for it. Okay, so that's what we're seeing. And now Tucker's going, oh, I just realized something, which the way that Tucker Carlson does that little character of sort of, I'm just really thinking of this. It's definitely not the thing that I was writing down earlier that I knew to be the most provocative thing I could say to rile up the MAGA base. They'd kill me. They'd really kill me. Or I guess I should do I'm just asking questions. Would they? I don't know. Maybe they would. Maybe they'd kill you. Keep watching to find out. Crazy stuff. Here's more from this Charlie Kirk podcast with Donald Trump Jr. and doesn't get much better.
Get it. But one of the things we talk about is how many red states we control. And let's just apply it. I know, Don, you might not be able to comment on this, but you could talk more broadly. Why is it that red states have not used their prosecutorial or investigative authority to indict the left?
Yeah.
You look at what Letitia James has done to your family. Letitia James did to the NRA. Why do we not have Attorney General Marshall in Alabama? Very sweet guy, very pleasant. But why is he not using his office to go after the Southern Poverty Law Center? Why are we not investigating BLM? There's a whole chapter in this book that if we're serious about beating the woke, we must recognize we actually control more of this country than we realize. We control 29 governor's mansions, 30.
Let me just click. Oh, boop. There we go. Wait, let me go back just the slightest little bit. 1 second here.
Whole chapter in this book that if we're serious about beating the woke.
Okay, go ahead and leave this on screen. Charlie Kirk has a book, okay? It's called Right Wing Revolution, and it is described as how to beat the woke and save the West. How to beat the woke. Is that still a thing? I didn't know that's still a thing. They're still doing the woke fear-mongering stuff? Can you imagine how to beat the woke? I would love at the beginning a definition of this woke phenomenon. But insane what he's saying. That in states that are controlled by, as he's saying, that have, I guess, Republican attorneys general, they should be going after Democrats just willy-nilly. Not because they have something on them, but let's just go after them for funsies. Just to punish them for How do you even reason that out in your head? We're going to punish BLM, as he said, because Alvin Bragg brought a case against Trump, brought it in front of a jury, and then the jury determined that Trump was guilty. Why is BLM involved in this? I'm confused. So you're hearing this a lot, though, by the way. I heard someone, I think Megyn Kelly, described it as mutually assured destruction. That if we do this to the left, then they'll stop doing it to us, and then we'll be good. But see, I said this in a past segment, and I want to reiterate it. This is my new feeling on this. Go for it. Genuinely. That attorney general he referenced, try to bring an indictment. See where that goes. Because the reason, Charlie Kirk, you keep asking why are we not doing this, the reason is because you would lose. Because you don't have evidence. Like Alvin Bragg had against Trump. That's the reason. That's why we have this incredible justice system that we have, is so that rogue prosecutors can't actually lock someone up by themselves. We have a whole process that doesn't always work correctly, but has in it embedded a bunch of systems to hopefully make sure someone who is innocent is proven to be so. And an unfair, unjust case could bring upon a prosecutor, could bring upon an office disgrace, but also sanctions. And that's not what they want. So that's the answer to his question. Here's more.
So far that it can never get back to center or certainly to the right. How long can we withstand, millions of illegal immigrants coming here that are purely designed? Yes. I mean, they're saying it out loud. It says, hey, we're losing those demographic, we're losing African Americans, we're losing Hispanics, so let's bring in people that'll be permanent dependents and will vote for us.
Great replacement theory. So we have Donald Trump Jr., and there's more, in one podcast, yikes, saying they're going to ship me off to the gulags, which is just wacky. I feel like whenever you don't feel enough like a victim, you have to start talking about the victimization of yourself that you think is going to happen. And this is what MAGA is about these days, it seems. Trump's victimization, and then you have Donald Trump Jr. saying, oh, they've done so much to me too, and I bet they'd do even worse. So I'm going to start feeling grief about what I think they might do to me that they would never do to me. And so he's saying that. Then you have Charlie Kirk openly saying, we should just, for the heck of it, do the thing that we're wrongly accusing the other side of doing to us. We should do that to them. We should break the very principle of political prosecutions are bad just to punish them for, as he's alleging, for doing that thing. Then here, openly pushing the great replacement theory. That there's this scheme by the deep state, Democrats, to bring in undocumented immigrants so that they can vote for Democrats because they're losing in other. Yeah, Democrats who have won, 7 out of the 8 last presidential election popular votes. Democrats who just keep overperforming in elections over the last few years. Democrats who are also implementing policies to attempt to restrict unlawful immigration. Democrats who supported one of the strongest border security bills that MAGA shot down in decades, etc., right? Now, that's even giving too much credence to the argument on its face. And if you walk through the pragmatics of how long it takes to become a citizen so that you can vote, what percentage of people who immigrate to the United States end up voting for Democrats, and how unlikely that would be to be a good strategy, even if that were some conspiracy theory, it makes absolutely no sense at all. And that very theory has led to mass shootings. It's very dangerous to be spewing. Here's more.
The thing that's not the radical left is right wing at this point. If you don't,
Yes.
subscribe to, 3-year-olds should be able to, without parental consent, go through life-altering sex change operations, you are a right wing extremist. You are a fascist, Charlie Kirk. So you're right that if you took the bell curve and this used to be center, literally, and this is a far left, anything, out of the, second standard deviation is, extreme right wing. And, I'd argue that today's conservative movement would be, quite left of center compared to historically. We keep moving left.
Totally.
being reasonable, but I think our reasonableness, unfortunately, is eating us alive because they just chip away at it each and every day. It's always, a death by 1,000 cuts.
Hey, so if you think, oh my gosh, if you think MAGA is extreme now, just know that they're saying they think they're center left. So that's interesting. Steve Bannon said that Trump is a moderate in MAGA. So apparently they want more MAGA than Trump now. And Trump's just too liberal, Oh gosh, that is really frightening stuff. And obviously he said that we over here on the left, we want without well, at all, but then also he's saying with no parental consent, 3-year-olds to get sex reassignment surgery. Could you argue with what we actually believe? That's my question. If you want to not like my views, that's fine. But I think you can't argue against them. That must be. I'm not saying that I just think they're so strong that you couldn't possibly. I'm saying you seem to be indicating to me you can't argue against our actual stances. People who think Biden should get reelected, why we think that. Go through the policy record. I've done it a gazillion times in my videos. Don Jr. could go watch, and maybe he'd like what he hears, okay? Because it's a bunch of common sense policies, like infrastructure projects that Trump promised to invest in, then didn't. Like trying to finally do something about the incredibly out of control prescription drug prices. Like trying to make sure that those who serve our country are treated properly and have the proper benefits. These are not extreme things, and the fact that he has to make up nonsense like what he did there proves to me, okay, the actual policy record of Biden can't be argued against, at least by the likes of Donald Trump Jr. The actual record of what we want to see, paid family leave, minimum wage increases. These are things that he can't make a compelling case against. Expanding the ACA. If you have to go to ridiculous, not even straw man, just lies about what your opposition believes, maybe you have the weaker argument. Maybe that's why you have to rely on those lies. Here's more.
Not Transgender Day
Yes.
of Awareness, which again, like,
Jeez.
it's not like they're not aware that they did that. It magically happened on Easter Sunday. They knew, and they're so radical, the left that's in charge in Washington, D.C., that it became okay. But I will say this, I don't think we're beyond saving it. I saw that, this weekend when I was at,
Okay. So there, again, lies. If you have to be dishonest in crafting your argument, you might have the losing argument. Probably so. And that's why I spend so much time on this show going through in such detail, as I've now done probably dozens of times, the policy record that we're talking about when it comes to Biden and Democrats that I'm at least impressed with in recent years, and talking about what I'd like to see going forward. Because sometimes those can be sort of redundant and tedious segments. Now let's talk about this executive order, and but then there really is a strong material thing that can be pointed to that's what we're talking about. And I'll link one of the recent examples if I can remember to do it. It's that Charlemagne the God segment that we did where I went through what I'm talking about. But then it's just, no, this is just silly. You're being ridiculous. This is what we want, okay? We want to pull people out of poverty. We want to get rid of food insecurity. We want to make sure people have clean and reliable drinking water. 10 million Americans don't. Get broadband out to rural communities. Invest in renewable energy, cheaper for consumers, better for the planet. Strengthen unions so people have a say in the workplace. Why are you making up stuff? Because you can't argue against that because Americans like that stuff. And by the way, he's relying on this long debunked idea that Trans Day of Visibility was started on Easter. It's on the same calendar day each year, and sometimes that falls days before or after Easter. But given how Easter is decided each year, it just so happened this particular year they fell on the same day. And then they created the theory. They said that Biden said he was, turning Easter into Trans Day of Visibility. And people ran with it. And I had people in my life sending, not to me, but someone else, in my orbit, in sort of like a group text scenario, texts about Biden being evil because of this and working on behalf of Satan and just crazy stuff being discussed out there because of lies. And also why you would think that's Satan saying, we love you. Satan! I'll leave it there. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments. If you want to get the extra episode of the show, I always say sometimes when I had people that I like to watch, I'd get to the end of the video and I'd go, oh, no, I watched the recent ones, now it's over. I'd love if you feel that way. And if you do, clicking the join button below gets you access to more content that is just for our members.